My name's Taylor Rowan, and this is Confident Risks. Today, we're talking about sacrifices. It is an aggressive word. Probably the better word is trade-offs. What are the trade-offs we have to do in order to get started? Got a lot to cover? Let's get into it. So the word sacrifices, like I said, it is very aggressive. And I hear that word all the time. Okay, what are you going to have to sacrifice in order to start? And we think about, well, I'm going to have to stop doing this. I'm going to have to stop doing that. And these are all things that I'm going to have to do in order to start the business. A lot of times we get so wrapped up in that it kind of deters us. And the best analogy that I can think of, well, this isn't the main analogy today, but it's another analogy, is the Legos again. I mean, it's such a good analogy for a lot of things. You look at this grandiose Lego set, maybe if you're at Lego World, or maybe it's one that you know someone that did, and you look at it and it's like, man, how did they get here? Well, like we talked about before, they had the instructions. You had the work instructions to get to that point. So really, yeah, there was a lot of work that had to be done, but really the sacrifice at the end of the day was time. And that time can be displayed on so many different levels. I mean, maybe someone spent 30 minutes a day doing that for a year, depending on how big it was. Or maybe they spent 30 minutes a day for a full week. And now they have this grandiose something to show for. And it's because they were able to delegate that time to it. So that's really what we're going to talk about today is what's the mindset when it comes to sacrifices or trade-offs that you have to do? Are we only thinking about the trade-offs and the sacrifices, or are we thinking about how can we tackle these step by step by step by step? And the analogy I'm going to use this week was actually a conversation I had last night with some friends. I was thinking about a good analogy, and we started talking about this, like, this is exactly what I'm going to use. So I've been talking to a buddy for a while now, and he's like, man, I really want to start something. And we've been talking down, how we can start it. And then Dam's like, man, just do it. That's how my thought is. But I was talking to his wife last night, and she was a hairstylist, and she was thinking about, oh man, I really want to do this on my own one day. So of course that perks my ears up, and we start going down. I'm talking to her about it. And she said, well, I'm really looking at the spot that I want to have, and I want to be able to have a space for these hairstylists to come in and rent booth space. I'm thinking, okay, that sounds good. How much are you paying right now for your booth space? And we start going down, and really my interest is there, but I'm not like interested yet. But then she brings up a good point. She goes, well, what I'd really like to do is start a school for hairstylists. Now my interest is there. Now I'm thinking to myself, man, that is a niche. That is something that I really hadn't heard about. So we start talking about that. And she's talking about, okay, here's what I got to have. Here's the setup. And I'm envisioning this now in my head, like, man, this is really what you could do. You could have X number. Okay, well, how long did you, go to the school for when you did it? And she's like, well, I went for X amount of, oh, okay. How much did you pay? Okay. Well, how many could you have? And so the numbers are just running in my head. I'm thinking about this. I mean, this is actually a pretty good business plan. So then it started coming to the place, well, yeah, but now that's going to take time and money. My wheels kind of kick in on that. And I started thinking to myself, really, is it going to take time and money right now? Yes, it's going to take time, but what type of time is that going to take? So I start talking with her a little bit more. She's like, well, what do you absolutely have to have first? I said, could you go do this right now? And of course, the answer was no, I have to have my teaching license to be able to do this. And it's going to take this and this. Okay, well, how long's that class? It's a year. Perfect. That's your starting point. Not the facility, not how am I going to set all this stuff up. The starting point is going to school first. Figuring out what type of education you have to get in order to be able to do this. And during that time, you're going to have maybe an hour or so that you have to set aside a day. Maybe it's a little bit more. Maybe you have to put your business on a little bit of a hold for now. But that sacrifice or that trade-off that you're doing now is going to pay dividends well over down the road. The great analogy that I can think of that as we pause the story there is, for instance, myself, I've been thinking for a long time, man, I just want to eat better. I want to exercise a little bit more. Ever since I played football, I was in the weight room constantly when I was playing football. I was constantly working out. I was constantly eating the right meals. And now that that's ended, I really haven't had that thing that's motivated me or driven me. So I've always had in the back of my head, okay, I'm going to work out. I'll work out for a few months. Then it slowly dwindles. Okay, I'm going to eat better. I do that for a little bit, then it slowly dwindles. I was thinking, if I just have that one thing that motivated me to be able to do it. Well, I just got diagnosed with diabetes. I'm a type 1 diabetic. True story. I've been feeling a little bit off lately, and so I finally go in and get some blood tests done, and I look back, okay, you're pre-diabetic. Now, for those of you who don't know much about diabetes, which I'm one of those, I'm still learning, but type 1 is one that you're born with. Type 2 is one that obviously comes from being, maybe you're overeating, maybe you're overweight. That comes with the type 2. You can turn that one around. Type 1, you can't turn around. So I found this out. I'm like, are you kidding me? How did this not get detected when I was younger? How, and I found out as a late onset. So it's something that a lot of times in your late 30s, you can get diagnosed with. People don't know. And sometimes people can even die because they don't know. Or the doctor tells you, like in my situation, oh, it looks like you have diabetes. We need to get you started on, better eating, better dieting. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I do pretty good right now. Not great. But okay. And then I did that to start off with, and it kept getting worse. Well, luckily I found out, I've got type 1. So right away, I was forced then to get into more exercise and a better diet. Now, I hate to use that as an analogy towards a business, but it's a great one because once I was forced into doing that, it was easy. And I say it was easy. I mean, I knew in the back of my head, well, you have to do it. You have no other choice. So I was able to then start changing my diet up. Okay, what do I need to watch? What do I looking for my blood sugar? How much? Oh, shoot, I can't eat this carb. I have to eat this. I need to go exercise. And after a couple of weeks of doing that, it was just second nature. Now I go, instead of craving a bowl of cereal at night, I'm craving an apple and peanut butter. Why do I tell you that story? It's because the mindset in my head went from like, oh, this is something that I should do to, okay, you have to do it. And that's a mindset that we really have to take on when it comes to some of these newer startup businesses is it just an idea we're playing with, or is it something that you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this not only for myself, but for my family, for the longevity, so that I can have hours that are going to be more flexible, maybe down the road, not necessarily now, but my kids are younger. They're getting ready to start back at the school. Maybe right now is the time. They go to school during the day. I take on one less client on the hair industry, but I'm able to spend that time then studying. And as I'm studying and learning in that school about becoming a hairstylist and being able to actually teach other people and create a school, now you're able to spend more time thinking about that business and making more of a reality because you're designating that time to think about that. And it slowly starts to happen. Now, why am I telling you that story? It's because it takes steps. What's the first step? We can't overwhelm ourselves with, okay, here's a situation I'm in now. In order for me to be here, I have all of these steps and money and time and all this stuff. It's no, take it step by step. Small sacrifices to start off with. Or small trade-offs to start off with. If I have to go to school and I have to do a little bit of that time, let's do that. Let's figure it out. Now, of course, you have to put the research into it. You have to build the confidence. You have to know what you're doing. You're not going into this blindly, but at the same time, you're taking the baby steps to start it. So now we started the process. We've enrolled in school. Now we're becoming educated on how am I going to educate others? And you're thinking through it and you're learning. That's what that learning time is for. It's to learn about how am I going to do this better later? You don't have the answers right up front. That's why you start down that road. An hour here, an hour there. We're doing the Lego. 30 minutes a day is building that confidence to get us to the point that when we finally do get to starting the business, we're able to start it. And maybe the first one, we have 5 or 6 students when we first start our new school that we're teaching, and we're going through the process and we're learning. Maybe the cost is lower, but we're learning. Your overhead's also lower at that time too. And you're learning the processes. You don't have to have the fancy stuff, the facility, all of these other things right off the bat. All you need to have is a school that can start. So now we've started the process of being educated to educate. And maybe we get to the point now where we've been educated. Then at that point, the schooling, everything's kicking in. You're understanding what it takes to teach other people. And that can completely change what your facility is going to look like, what all these other things are. I think back to the analogy I told you guys about our inventory room and how we were trying to set the inventory room up perfectly at the very beginning. And finally, I was like, let's not set this inventory room up perfectly. Let's just set the inventory room up. We're going to find out later what it means to have a perfect inventory room because we don't know what we don't know yet. And the same thing happens on this business level. We hear sacrifices. You got to sacrifice time. You got to sacrifice money. You got to sacrifice, all these other things. The best advice I can get is just start. That's the best advice I can give. Just start. If we just start down the road, the things will start falling into place. We don't have to be that grandiose business right off the bat. All we need to do is start. The goal at the very beginning is to make enough money to support yourself. We look at large businesses and yes, they're supporting themselves and they're doing that at extreme levels. But the very first goal is how can I get out on my own and make money for myself? Those are businesses that none of us see during the day a lot of the time. I told you guys I'm going to start talking about front door versus back door businesses. Some of the most successful businesses in my analogy here is a front door business versus a backdoor business. A front door business is if I want a product, I have to go to a store and I walk through the front doors, let's say a Best Buy, and I'm coming in the front door. Well, here's what we also know is that there are a lot of businesses that are supplying to Best Buy through the back door. They're coming in. Or let's take a restaurant, for instance. It's probably a better analogy. A restaurant. Customers are coming through the front entrance. They are coming in. They know what they're getting. They're getting food. They're getting a drink. They're getting service by a waiter or a waitress. And then at the end of the day, they get their bill and they're leaving. There are a lot of businesses that also come through the back door of that restaurant that are supplying napkins, that are supplying plates, cups, other items. Those are businesses that maybe a lot of us don't know about. Those are businesses a lot of times that can be smaller. And sometimes the margins on those business are a lot higher because they're ones that maybe aren't as exciting. Those restaurants and other businesses are easier to kind of have that concept of and to start, but those backdoor businesses sometimes are the easier ones and a lot of times the ones we don't hear about. Those are the types of businesses, though, that we need to start looking at more and realizing that, man, it doesn't take all of this hoopla. This doesn't take all of this grandiose stuff. All it takes is to get started. Yes, the sacrifices are there at the beginning, the time, but the money sacrifices really aren't there as much if we're able, again, to keep that overhead low. If we're able to start thinking to ourselves, okay, how can I start this? What are the things I absolutely have to do first? Here's another analogy to wrap this up, is it's a river. Let's say we have a 100-mile long river, and that river is just winding. If you're a farmer and that river's running through your property, let's say, and you realize to yourself one day, like, hey, this river's taking a pretty big jog and it's coming back. If I just did a shortcut here and I shortcutted this river around, let's take this big bend out of it and let's just shortcut the river through. So you start trenching it. And maybe, that shortcut, maybe it's a half a mile that river goes and it comes back pretty long ways. And the shortcut you make for it's 100 yards long. And now that river, you're thinking, so man, this is running more efficiently. Here's what's going to happen. That river, that shortcut that you made is now going to start reforming itself. It has to be a certain distance because of how fast it's flowing. So that shortcut you took, maybe the river starts flowing a little bit faster in that area because now it's not going around a wind and it starts backing up. Well, then upriver, that river is going to start changing formation, or downriver, one of the two. So we think early on in our business startup, using that analogy, saying, okay, maybe now I'm going to get ahead of myself and I'm going to go and I'm going to buy the facility first. And then I'll start thinking about how I'm going to get hair salon, how I'm going to start renting space. You're putting the cart before the horse. Yes, that sounds great, but at the same time, down the road, back up, now you have to go take backward step. Okay, now I have to go to school. Oh, shoot, I did this before I did that. It's thinking about the appropriate steps that have to be made. The river's the way it is for a reason. We have to accept that. We have to understand the only things that I can do right now is take baby steps in my journey on this new business. What are the things that I absolutely have to do first? What are the things that are going to get me started? Then we take steps 2, 3, 4, and 5. We cannot take the whole thing on and think to ourselves, man, that is a lot of time. That is a lot of money sacrifice that has to be done to get to here. The best thing we can do is think about the absolute baby steps, the things that we have to do right off the bat. Because once we get started down that route, the rest of it's going to fall into place. Another analogy, if I'm going to pick a tire up that has to be transported, let's say 10 miles, we can think about the 10 miles that it has to be transported, or we can think to ourselves, you know what? There's some ups and downs in this valley. I could probably pick this tire up, push it, and it's going to travel itself for the longest amount of time. Then it's going to fall over. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of work to get up this hill, and then I can start the rolling again. Instead of thinking to ourselves about maybe the 10 miles, now we're thinking about the areas that we might have to just pick it up and travel. Now, as we get started and we've gone to school and we're starting to think, now we're realizing, man, I was really stressed about this, 8 miles, let's just say, of stretch that this tire has to go, when really I shouldn't have fretted about that at all. I just learned all of that in the education that I just had. Now it's just these little steps I got to get, which is, okay, I got to get a facility. I got to purchase a building. Well, no, you don't even have to purchase a building right off the way. Oh, so-and-so's got a spot that I could use very cheaply. Great. Then that's where you start. And as you start putting all these building blocks together, the big picture starts coming really to light. So we can't compare ourselves right off the bat. The moral of the story is this: we can't right off the bat think about, man, the money and time sacrifices that are going to have to be had. Yes, they're there, but you can take those in small chunks. By you starting now, you are going to be much, much further ahead a year from now by taking an hour a day, by taking 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, by the time you get to the end of that year, you have now spent 25, 40, 50, 60 hours thinking about that one topic that you didn't have the time before. Don't think about big pictures off the bat. Yes, get your vision, but then just start down the road. Start thinking about the little baby steps that have to be had in order to get it rolling. By doing that, your mindset's going to change. You're going to start thinking about the big picture differently, and you're going to be able to start much sooner. Hopefully you guys are able to take something from what you heard today, apply it to your everyday life. If so, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, follow us on social media. And until next time, stay sharp, stay resilient.